Listen carefully, because what I'm about to say is not gentle, and it is not meant to soothe you into comfort. It is meant to awaken you. There is a moment coming when you will wish you had listened more deeply, prayed more honestly, and rested more intentionally. There is a season approaching when the noise will increase, the pressure will multiply, and the demands upon your soul will become heavier than you imagine. That is why I say to you now, with urgency burning in my spirit, rest while you can, because it is happening soon. Many people misunderstand rest. They think rest is laziness, escape, or delay. They believe rest is what you do when nothing is required of you. But true rest is not the absence of responsibility, it is the preparation for responsibility. True rest is not weakness, it is strength being stored. True rest is not retreat, it is alignment. When God speaks about rest, He's not telling you to stop caring. He's telling you to stop striving in your own power and to return to the place where your strength was always meant to come from. There is a difference between being tired in your body and being exhausted in your spirit. Many of you are not physically tired. You are spiritually drained. You wake up already heavy. You go through your day already burdened. You pray, but your prayers feel like they hit the ceiling and fall back down. You work, but the joy that once carried you is missing. That is not because God has moved away from you. It is because you have been running ahead of God without stopping to rest in His presence. God never designed you to live in constant urgency without renewal. He never intended for your soul to be stretched endlessly without restoration. He knows what is coming. He knows the weight of the days ahead. He knows the shaking that will test hearts, the decisions that will demand clarity, and the moments that will require courage you cannot manufacture on your own. That is why He calls you now. Before the storm fully forms, before the pressure fully rises, before the demand fully arrives, to rest while you can. Some of you think rest can wait. You tell yourself you will slow down later, pray deeper later, listen more carefully later. But later is a dangerous word. Later is where strength goes to die. Later is where clarity becomes confusion. Later is where small compromises become deep regrets. God is not speaking to you about rest because you are finished. He is speaking to you about rest because you are about to be needed more than ever. There is an urgency in the spiritual atmosphere. You can feel it even if you cannot explain it. Conversations feel heavier. Decisions feel more serious. Time feels faster, as though days are collapsing into each other. This is not imagination. This is transition. And transition requires rest, because what carried you through the last season will not be enough for the next one. God does not warn without purpose. When He says something is coming, He is not trying to frighten you. He is trying to prepare you. When He calls you to rest, He is not removing you from purpose. He is anchoring you in it. The greatest mistakes are not made by people who are evil. They are made by people who are exhausted. Tired minds make careless choices. Worn down spirits confuse urgency with importance. A soul that has not rested will mistake noise for direction. That is why God is calling you back to stillness. Not silence for silence's sake, but stillness that allows you to hear again. Stillness that restores your sensitivity. Stillness that realigns your heart with His timing. When you are constantly moving, constantly reacting, constantly consuming, you lose the ability to discern. And in the days ahead, discernment will not be optional. It will be essential. Do not think rest means stopping your life. Rest means stopping your resistance. It means releasing the false belief that everything depends on you. It means letting go of the pressure to control outcomes that were never yours to control. God is not impressed by how busy you are. He is moved by how surrendered you are. He is not measuring your speed. He is watching your obedience. There are people listening to this who have not truly rested in a long time. You have slept, but you have not rested. You have taken breaks, but you have not been restored. Your body paused, but your mind kept racing. Your schedule slowed, but your heart stayed anxious. That is not rest. Rest is when you place the full weight of your trust on God and stop carrying what He never asked you to carry. What is coming will require faith. that is calm, not frantic. It will require strength that is steady, not explosive. It will require wisdom that is clear, not rushed. You cannot build that kind of inner life while running non-stop. You cannot hear God clearly when your soul is constantly shouting. That is why this moment matters. This is not a suggestion. This is an invitation layered with urgency. Some of you have been confusing pressure with calling. You feel overwhelmed and assume it must be from God because it feels important. But God's calling may stretch you, yet it will not crush you. When the weight becomes unbearable, it is often a sign that you are carrying something prematurely or unnecessarily. God does not rush His servants into burnout. He prepares them in quiet places before He places them in demanding ones. Look at your life honestly. Where have you been forcing movement instead of waiting for direction? Where have you been speaking when you should have been listening? Where have you been pushing forward when God was calling you inward? Rest is not retreat, it is recalibration. It is the moment where your inner compass is reset so that when movement begins again, it is accurate and aligned. God knows what is happening soon. He knows the assignments that will be released, the responsibilities that will increase, the moments that will test what you truly believe. That is why He is calling you now to stop proving, stop striving, stop performing, and start resting. Not resting from purpose, but resting in Him. There is a false belief that strong people do not need rest. That belief has destroyed many who were called. Strength that refuses rest eventually becomes weakness. Faith that refuses stillness eventually becomes noise. God is not asking you to become less committed. He is asking you to become more rooted. A tree that does not sink its roots deeper before the storm will fall, no matter how tall it stands. The days ahead will not reward shallow faith. They will expose it. They will not tolerate borrowed conviction. They will demand personal surrender. That kind of depth is not built in crowds or in noise. It is built in quiet obedience. It is built when you choose to step away from constant input and return to the presence of God, where your soul remembers who it is and who He is. Rest while you can, because soon you will need the strength that rest produces. Soon you will need the peace that comes from deep trust. Soon you will need the clarity that only comes from stillness. God is not trying to slow your destiny. He is trying to preserve it. Some of you are afraid to rest because you think everything will fall apart if you stop. That fear reveals how much you have been relying on yourself instead of God. If your life collapses when you pause, then it was never built on a stable foundation. God does not need your exhaustion to sustain what He has ordained. He needs your obedience. Rest requires humility. It requires admitting that you are not limitless. It requires acknowledging that God is not impressed by your depletion. It requires trusting that He can work even when you are still. This kind of rest is an act of faith. It says, God, I believe you are working even when I am not striving. The coming season will separate those who have learned to rest from those who only know how to rush. Those who have rested will move with authority, not anxiety. They will speak with weight, not desperation. They will stand firm while others panic. Not because they are stronger, but because they allowed God to strengthen them when the invitation was given. Do not ignore this call. Do not treat it lightly. God does not repeat Himself without reason. If you are He airing this now, it is because He has given you time. Time to slow down. Time to realign, time to let your soul breathe again. Time to return to the place where faith is not forced, but flows naturally from trust. The world rewards speed, but God honors timing. The world celebrates hustle, but God sustains obedience. What is happening soon will not favor those who move first. It will favor those who listened well. And listening requires rest. There is more God wants to say to you, but you will not hear it if you remain constantly distracted. There is guidance He wants to release, but it will not come through noise. There is strength He wants to give, but it will not enter a soul that refuses to slow down long enough to receive it. Rest is not the end of movement, it is the beginning of correct movement. It is the pause before precision. It is the stillness before power. It is the quiet before clarity. And this moment, right now, is more important than you realize. God is calling you to prepare, not panic, to rest, not run, to trust, not strive. Because what is coming will require everything that only rest can produce. There is a sacred danger in ignoring the gentle warnings of God. He rarely shouts at first. He whispers to those who are willing to listen. He nudges before he shakes. He invites before he interrupts. When God speaks of rest, it is not because nothing is happening, but because everything is about to matter more than ever before. You are standing at the edge of a threshold, and thresholds demand awareness, not exhaustion. Many people want power without preparation, authority without alignment, results without reverence, but God does not operate that way. He shapes before he sends. He stills before he strengthens. He deepens before he elevates. If you skip the stillness, you will misinterpret the strength. If you ignore the rest, you will mishandle the responsibility. God is not slow, He is precise, and precision requires patience. You must understand this truth deeply. What drains you now will disqualify you later if it is not surrendered. God does not build His future on your burnout. He builds it on your obedience. There is nothing noble about being constantly overwhelmed. There is nothing spiritual about being perpetually depleted. That condition is not proof of devotion. It is often evidence of misalignment. Some of you have been carrying assignments that were never given to you. You took on expectations God did not place on your shoulders. You accepted pressures He never authorized. And now your soul feels heavy, your joy feels distant, and your faith feels strained. God is not asking you to endure that. He is calling you to lay it down and rest in Him before it costs you clarity. Rest is where God recalibrates your vision. When you slow down, you begin to see what speed was hiding. You recognize motives that were mixed. You discern paths that looked right but were slightly off. You notice how easily urgency can disguise distraction. In rest, God removes the fog that busyness creates. He sharpens your perception so you can distinguish between what is urgent and what is eternal. There is coming a time when decisions will need to be made quickly but wisely. That kind of wisdom is not developed in chaos. It is formed in quiet trust. God prepares His servants for pressure by first teaching them peace. A soul that has learned how to be still will not be shaken when movement intensifies. It will move decisively, not desperately. You must stop equating noise with progress. Some of the greatest advancements in your life will come from moments when nothing visible is happening. God often does His deepest work beneath the surface. Roots grow in darkness. Foundations are laid out of sight. If you constantly demand visible results, you will interrupt invisible formation. Rest allows God to finish what striving keeps interrupting. There is also a deeper truth. Many resist. Rest exposes what you trust. When you stop moving, what rises in you, peace or panic, reveals where your faith truly rests. If fear floods in when you slow down, it is because you have been using motion to avoid trust. God is inviting you to confront that fear, not run from it. Rest is where false supports collapse and true dependence is built. What is approaching will test inner stability, not outer appearance. Titles will not sustain you. Applause will not guide you. Familiar routines will not protect you. Only a soul anchored in God will remain steady. That anchoring happens in rest. When you intentionally turn away from constant consumption and return to communion with Him. God is not impressed by how much you can endure without stopping. He is honored by how willingly you listen when He calls you to pause. Obedience is not always about movement. Sometimes obedience looks like stillness when everything in you wants to rush forward. That kind of obedience requires courage because it goes against the pressure of the world and the impatience of the flesh. There are seasons when God advances you quickly, and there are seasons when He slows you deliberately. Both are expressions of His wisdom. To resist either is to resist Him. Right now, He is speaking rest because acceleration is coming. He is calling you to strengthen your inner life because external demands will soon increase. He is teaching you how to draw from Him so you do not collapse when the weight arrives. Do not confuse waiting with wasting time. Waiting in God is never empty. It is active surrender. It is trust in motion beneath the surface. While you rest, God rearranges circumstances, softens hearts, removes obstacles, and prepares paths you cannot yet see. Your rest is not delaying the future, it is aligning you with it. Some of you have been afraid that if you rest, you will lose momentum. But momentum built on exhaustion is fragile. One unexpected pressure and it collapses. Momentum built on God is resilient. It carries you through resistance, criticism, uncertainty, and delay. That kind of momentum is born in rest, not in relentless effort. God is also using this call to rest to purify your desires. When you slow down, you begin to notice what you have been chasing and why. You see where ambition replaced obedience. You recognize where comparison stole contentment. Rest brings honesty, and honesty before God leads to transformation. There is a reason God often meets people in quiet places. Not because He is distant, but because silence removes distractions. In that space, your prayers change. They become less about asking and more about aligning, less about control and more about surrender. That is where your faith matures. That is where your confidence shifts from outcomes to trusting God Himself. The coming season will require people who are not easily offended, not easily distracted, not easily shaken. Those qualities are not developed in constant reaction. They are formed in stillness. When you learn how to rest in God, you learn how to respond instead of react. You gain emotional authority. You gain spiritual composure. You gain clarity that others will desperately seek. God is preparing you to be a voice, not an echo. But echoes come from noise. Voices come from conviction. Conviction is strengthened in quiet reflection, not constant stimulation. If you want your words to carry weight, your soul must first learn how to be still before God. This is also a moment of mercy. God is giving you time to realign before the pressure exposes misalignment. He is offering rest before fatigue turns into failure. He is inviting you to listen before urgency demands action. Do not see this as interruption. See it as protection. You may not fully understand what is happening soon, but God does. And He is far more interested in who you become than in how fast you arrive. Rest shapes character. It softens arrogance. It deepens humility. It anchors faith. Without it, success becomes dangerous and responsibility becomes crushing. Let go of the belief that you must always be doing something to be valuable. Your worth does not increase with your activity. God values your heart, not your pace. When you rest in Him, you declare that He is enough, that His timing is perfect, and that His strength is sufficient. The invitation is still open. Slow your breathing, quiet your thoughts, release the tension you have been carrying. Allow God to restore what has been drained, because when the moment comes, and it will come, you will not have time to build strength. You will need to draw from what you stored in rest. There is a sacred exchange that happens when you choose rest over resistance. When you stop fighting time and start trusting God, something inside you settles. The striving quiets. The fear loosens its grip. The urgency that once drove you begins to give way to assurance. That assurance is not passive, it is powerful. It is the confidence that God is ahead of you, not behind you, and that nothing coming will catch Him unprepared. Many people believe they must always be alert, always vigilant, always pushing because they fear missing their moment. But your moment is not something you chase, it is something God brings to you when you are ready. Readiness is not about speed, it is about depth. It is about being so rooted in God that when the call comes, you do not hesitate out of fear or rush out of insecurity. You move because you are aligned, not because you are anxious. God is more concerned with your inner posture than your outer position. You can be in the right place at the wrong depth and still fail under pressure. Rest deepens you. It widens your capacity. It teaches your spirit how to remain calm when circumstances grow intense. Without that inner training, success becomes overwhelming and responsibility becomes unbearable. There is a hidden violence in constant urgency. It teaches your soul that peace is a luxury instead of a necessity. It convinces you that worth is measured by output instead of obedience. Over time, that mindset erodes trust. You begin to believe that if you stop, everything will unravel. But God is not sustained by your anxiety. He is honored by your trust. Rest is where God reminds you that He is not reacting to events. He is orchestrating them. What feels sudden to you has already been accounted for by Him. What feels overwhelming has already been weighed. What feels uncertain is already known. When you rest, you step into that perspective. You stop viewing life from the ground and begin to see it from above through the lens of trust. There is also healing in rest. Not just physical healing, but healing of perception. When you slow down, you notice where disappointment hardened your heart. You see where unmet expectations turned into quiet resentment. You recognize how long you've been carrying grief without acknowledging it. God does not rush that healing. He invites it. Rest gives Him space to restore what you learned to ignore just to keep moving. Some of you have been strong for too long. You have carried others, supported others, prayed for others, encouraged others while neglecting your own restoration. God sees that. He is not rebuking you. He is calling you back to Himself. Strength that is never renewed becomes brittle. Compassion that is never replenished becomes obligation. Rest is where love is refreshed and faith is rekindled. The season ahead will demand emotional maturity. It will require you to respond with wisdom instead of impulse, with grace instead of frustration, with confidence instead of fear. Those qualities are not developed in pressure. They are revealed there. They are developed in rest, where God reshapes your inner life so your outer responses reflect His character. God is not asking you to withdraw from the world, but to withdraw from unnecessary noise. There is a difference. Noise drains discernment. Silence sharpens it. When you rest, you become selective again. You stop giving equal weight to every opinion, every demand, every distraction. You learn to recognize the voice of God above the rest. And that recognition will guide you when clarity is rare. Do not underestimate how quickly exhaustion can distort truth. A tired mind interprets delay as denial. A weary heart mistakes silence for absence. A drained spirit turns small obstacles into major threats. Rest corrects that distortion. It restores perspective. It reminds you that God has never left, never failed, never lost control. There is also courage being built in this stillness. Not the loud courage of confrontation, but the quiet courage of trust. The courage to wait when everything in you wants to act. The courage to say no when pressure demands yes. The courage to let God lead even when the path is not fully visible. That courage will be essential in what is coming. God prepares His servants in obscurity before He positions them in visibility. If you skip the quiet work, the visible work will expose you. Rest is not inactivity, it is formation. It is where humility is strengthened so success does not corrupt you. It is where patience is developed so delay does not discourage you. Some of you have been confusing intensity with importance. You feel something strongly and assume it must be urgent. But God's guidance often carries peace, even when it leads into challenge. Rest teaches you how to recognize that peace. It trains your spirit to differentiate between pressure from the world and prompting from God. What is happening soon will require people who can stand firm without becoming rigid, who can move quickly without becoming reckless, who can speak boldly without losing compassion. Those balances are not learned in haste, they are learned in surrender. Rest is where surrender becomes natural, not forced. God is also using this moment to detach you from outcomes. When you rest, you release the need to control results. You stop measuring success by immediate feedback. You begin to trust that obedience is enough, that detachment is free. It allows you to act with integrity instead of desperation when the moment arrives. There is a quiet authority that comes from resting in God. It does not need to announce itself. It does not need to compete. It is recognized by its calm certainty. People will sense it in you. They will feel safe around it. They will seek guidance from it. That authority is not built on knowledge alone. It is built on intimacy with God. If you ignore this call, you may still move forward, but you will move heavy. You will move strained. You will move reactive instead of responsive. God does not want that for you. He wants you to move with clarity, with strength, with trust that is unshakable because it was forged in rest. The invitation remains simple, but it is not easy. Slow down, be still. Let God speak without interruption. Let Him restore without resistance. Let Him prepare you without your constant interference. What is coming will not wait for you to catch your breath. That is why God is giving you this moment now, before everything accelerates, to rest while you can. There is a discipline to rest that many never learn because it requires surrender more than effort. Effort is familiar. Control feels as safe. Activity gives the illusion of progress, but rest strips those illusions away. It places you in a posture where you must trust God without proof, wait without guarantees, and believe without constant confirmation. That posture is uncomfortable for the mind, but it is powerful for the spirit. God often reveals the condition of your faith when He asks you to pause. When movement stops, whatever you were using to numb fear, avoid truth, or escape reflection loses its power. In that stillness, God speaks not to condemn, but to clarify. He shows you where fear has been guiding decisions. He exposes where pride disguised itself as confidence. He gently redirects you away from paths that looked productive but were quietly draining your soul. There is a refining that happens in rest. Motives are purified. Intentions are examined. You begin to ask different questions. Not how fast can I move, but why am I moving at all? Not how much can I accomplish, but what does God desire from me in this moment? Those questions realign you with eternal priorities instead of temporary pressure. God is preparing you for moments when you will have to stand alone in conviction. When voices around you will be loud, persuasive, and confident, yet wrong. In those moments, borrowed strength will fail you. Only the strength that comes from deep rest in God will hold you steady. Only a soul trained in stillness will recognize truth without needing consensus. Rest also teaches restraint. In the days ahead, not every opportunity will be an assignment. Not every open door will be from God. Not every urgent request will require your response. Rest sharpens discernment so you can say no wit. How guilt and yes without fear. It teaches you that obedience is more powerful than availability. There is a quiet confidence that grows when you are no longer driven by the need to prove yourself. Rest dismantles that need. It reminds you that your value was never earned through performance. It was given by God. When that truth settles deeply within you, you stop competing, you stop comparing, you stop measuring your life against others and begin measuring it by faithfulness. God knows the weight that is coming. He knows the decisions that will carry lasting consequences. He knows the conversations that will require wisdom beyond emotion. He knows the moments when you will be tempted to act quickly instead of wisely. That is why He is calling you now to slow down, to listen, to rest in Him until His voice becomes clearer than every other voice. Do not mistake the stillness for delay. It is alignment. Alignment is never wasted time. When a compass is adjusted, movement pauses, but direction is secured. God is adjusting you now so that when movement resumes, it is accurate. Without that adjustment, speed would only take you further off course. Some of you are discovering in rest that your faith has been stretched thin by constant demands. That realization is not failure, it is mercy. God is showing you the cracks so He can strengthen the foundation. He is not disappointed in you. He is inviting you deeper, where faith is not reactive but rooted. There is also a release that comes with rest. A release of expectations you were never meant to carry. Expectations placed on you by others. Expectations you placed on yourself out of fear of falling behind. Expectations that silently shaped your decisions and stole your peace. In rest, God separates what is required from what is assumed. That separation brings freedom. As you rest, you may feel exposed at first. Without motion to distract you, thoughts surface, questions arise, doubts whisper. Do not flee that moment. God meets you there. He does not shame questions, He answers them. He does not reject doubt. He transforms it into trust when you bring it honestly before Him. What is coming will not reward frantic faith. It will reward steady faith. Faith that has learned to wait without wavering. Faith that has learned to listen without rushing ahead. Faith that has learned to rest without losing hope. That kind of faith is resilient. It bends under pressure but does not break. God is also shaping your capacity for responsibility. Greater influence requires greater inner stability. Without rest, influence becomes dangerous. Responsibility magnifies whatever is already inside you. If peace lives there, peace will spread. If fear lives there, fear will multiply. Rest ensures that what grows in you is what should be revealed through you. You are not falling behind because you slow down. You are being positioned. God is not in competition with time. He governs it. He can restore what feels lost. He can accelerate what He has prepared. But He will not bypass formation just to satisfy impatience. There is a sacred strength in knowing when to stop, knowing when to be quiet, knowing when to wait. That strength does not come from instinct. It comes from intimacy with God. Rest deepens that intimacy. It turns belief into trust and trust into confidence. The call to rest is also a call to simplify, to let go of unnecessary complications, to release commitments that drain without purpose, to remove distractions that dilute focus. In rest, God brings clarity, and clarity brings peace even before circumstances change. As you remain in this posture, you will begin to sense an inner steadiness returning. Your reactions soften, your thoughts slow, your prayers deepen. You become less concerned with controlling outcomes and more committed to honoring God in each step. That shift is subtle, but it changes everything. What lies ahead will require that steadiness, not just for you, but for those who will look to you for guidance, reassurance, and strength. God is not only preparing you for what you will face, but for who you will support. Rest ensures you will not give from emptiness when others are in need. This moment is a gift, a pause before acceleration, a breath before exertion, a quiet before demand. Do not rush past it. Do not fill it with noise. Remain here attentive and willing, allowing God to complete what He has begun within you, because the strength you are gaining now will soon be required. Now hear this with your whole heart. This moment is not passing you by. It is standing before you, asking for a response. Not agreement, not emotion, but surrender. God is not merely speaking to inform you. He is calling you to transformation. The rest He offers is not escape. It is preparation. It is the sacred ground where fear loosens its grip, where faith rises without strain, and where your soul remembers who it belongs to. Examine your life honestly. Look at the pace you have accepted, the burdens you have normalized, the noise you have allowed to shape your thinking. Ask yourself what has been driving you: trust or fear, obedience or urgency, faith or pressure. God is inviting you to lay it all before Him. Not tomorrow, not when things calm down, but now. Because clarity does not come after rest, it comes through it. Let this be the moment you choose depth over display, Obedience over overextension, trust over control. Let this be the moment you stop surviving and start aligning. God does not need you exhausted to use you. He needs you rooted, listening, and willing. When you rest in Him, you are not stepping away from purpose. You are stepping into the strength that purpose requires. Draw near to God with a quiet heart. Release what you cannot carry. Surrender what you cannot control. Allow Him to restore what has been worn thin by striving. This is your invitation to slow your steps, steady your spirit, and anchor your life in Him alone. Do not rush past this calling. Do not silence it with activity. Receive it with humility and courage. Stand still long enough for God to renew your vision, strengthen your inner life, and prepare you for what lies ahead. Let your faith become calm, your trust become deep, and your obedience become unwavering. Rest while you can, not in weakness, but in confidence, knowing that when you walk forward, you will do so upheld by God, guided by His wisdom, and strengthened by a peace that cannot be shaken.